Ever caught yourself wondering, like, does art just copy the world or actually, like, change it?
Yeah.
It's that classic question, right? Art imitating life or the other way around, life imitating art?
Yeah.
We're diving deep into that today.
Right.
We're looking at this article. It's even called, get this, does art imitate life or does life imitate art?
Straightforward.
So yeah, get ready. We're going to unpack some wild concepts, look at like real world stuff, and hopefully by the end you've got more questions than answers.
That's the goal.
It's going to be fun.
It's a question that's like super relevant now more than ever. I mean, especially with all this AI and VR stuff exploding.
Right.
But to really get it, we got to start with the basics.
Okay, so basics first.
That idea of art as mimesis.
Mimesis. Okay, got to break that down for me. What even is mimesis?
So basically, mimesis is the idea that art is a reflection of, reality.
Okay.
Like picture those cave paintings way back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
The ones with like bison and all those hunting scenes.
Yeah.
Those early artists, they were trying to like capture their world, understand it, preserve it.
Like a snapshot frozen on a cave wall.
Exactly. And that instinct to imitate, to reflect, it's kind of woven into like the whole history of art. Fast forward a bunch of centuries and you've got the Renaissance masters trying to show the human form like perfectly, almost divine,
Oh, I see. Like Michelangelo's David, Da Vinci's Mona Lisa, those kinds of works.
Exactly, those works that tried to like elevate everyday stuff into something, I don't know, more
transcendent.
Yeah, that's the word. But it's deeper than just like pretty pictures.
Okay.
Art also imitates life by like tapping into our feelings, our emotions. The article even talks about those old Greek tragedies and how they were supposed to create catharsis in the audience.
Now, catharsis, I've heard that word, but honestly, what does that even mean?
So catharsis is basically a purging of emotions.
Okay.
Think of it like a good cry that leaves you feeling kind of, cleansed. The idea was that by watching these actors going through all this intense suffering, the audience, they'd all feel this shared sense of release, like emotional purification.
So it's like a group emotional experience, but brought on by art.
Exactly. Pretty intense stuff, right?
Intense. But hold on, the article doesn't stop there.
Oh.
It brings up this Oscar Wilde guy, and he, like, flips the whole script on us.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He's all, life imitates art far more than art imitates life.
What? Wow, he was a pro at shaking things up.
Yeah.
He was basically saying art doesn't just show us the world, it actually shapes how we see it.
Uh-huh.
And, once you start looking for it, you see it everywhere.
Give me an example. Like, how does life literally imitate art?
All right, think about romantic love. That whole idea of a big passionate love story.
Yeah.
The kind that maybe even ends tragically.
These are dramatic.
That's like heavily influenced by art. Literature, plays like Romeo and Juliet, operas, all of it. They all feed into what we expect love to be like.
So you're saying, like, how we understand love, it's been filtered through, what, centuries of artistic interpretation?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it goes way beyond just love,
Okay.
The article talks about how sunsets, something everyone's always seen, they became this, I don't know, big event.
Right.
All about the colors, the drama, partly because of how those romantic painters were showing them.
Interesting. So it's like we're not just looking at a sunset, we're almost comparing it to a picture in our heads, like from a painting.
You got it. Art has kind of conditioned us to see the world a certain way. And it's more than just nature, Think about like fashion trends, how often they come from movies and TV, or how the Bauhaus movement, all about minimalist design, that ended up influencing how we build stuff now, modern architecture.
Oh, wow. So it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. This life imitates art thing. It's everywhere you look.
Okay. So art changes how we see things, but can it change how we actually act, how we behave?
Oh, for sure.
Really?
Think about all those heroes and villains in stories.
Okay.
The rebels, outcasts, tragic figures.
Yeah.
They're like models for us, They help us figure out our own place in the world.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as like what it means to be cool, that often comes from the art and media we take in.
So we're all just playing out roles from books and movies. That's kind of a crazy thought.
It makes you think, right?
Like
About who we are and if we really have free will.
Yeah. Like, are we actually being ourselves or just acting out roles we learned from art?
Exactly.
This is getting deep. But if art shapes life and life shapes art, where does it even begin? It feels like, what is it, a chicken and the egg thing?
It's less about which came first and more like.
Okay.
It's an infinite loop. art and life, they're just woven together, constantly feeding back into each other.
Okay, infinite loop. But this loop, it can't just be spinning forever without, having some effects. It has to be impacting us somehow.
Oh, it definitely is. And that leads us to this idea of hyperreality.
Hyperreality. Another one. All right, break it down for us. What does that even look like?
Okay, picture Times Square.
Okay.
Real place, right?
Yeah.
But it's also been in like a zillion movies, photos, TV shows. So when you actually go there, it can feel, I don't know, more like a movie set than a real city.
Oh, that's so true.
That line between what's real and what's just a representation of real, it gets blurry.
It's almost like we've seen it so much on screen that the real thing feels fake.
Exactly. The imitation, the art becomes like more real than the actual thing. And this happens with more than just places,
Oh, really?
Think about the Wild West, cowboys, saloons, gunfights at noon.
Classic.
That image, that's mostly from Hollywood. The real Wild West was way more complex and honestly, not as glamorous.
So we're seeing history through art, which might not be totally accurate.
Exactly. And it affects how we see ourselves, too, Our roles in society, our identities are being shaped by stories from books, movies, art, even social media.
Whoa. So we're all just walking around like characters in a story.
It's a thought, isn't it?
It is.
Makes you ask, are we really us? Or are we playing parts we learned from all these stories we consume?
Back again for more of this deep dive. It's really kind of wild how art and life are like mashed up together.
Yeah, it is.
So we were talking about how art doesn't just like show us life. It actually kind of messes with it, shapes it.
Right. We've been exploring that.
Like we talked about love and sunsets, even how we pose for pictures, all that stuff.
Yeah, and we were getting into that whole hyperreality thing.
Oh, right. Where the fake stuff feels more real than the actual thing.
Exactly.
Okay. But like, get real here for a sec. What does all this mean for, us, like in our everyday life?
Right.
How do we actually use these ideas?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? I think the first thing is just realizing it's happening.
Okay.
Recognizing that we don't see the world like purely. All these stories we tell ourselves, the art we see, it's all influencing us.
So being more aware of it. Like if I'm watching a movie and it's setting up what I think a date should be like.
Yeah, exactly. Or a song making you feel extra sad.
Yeah.
It's like developing this filter, to step back and ask, is this really me feeling this? Or is it just something I picked up from somewhere else?
Whoa. So like taking control of our own minds, our own emotions.
Exactly. And once you see it, you can start to choose the art you let into your life,
Oh, so like being picky with what movies we watch, books we read.
Yeah. It's like curating your own art diet.
An art diet.
What stories do you want in your life? What values? What ways of seeing things?
Huh. It's like we're all museum curators, but for our own minds.
That's a good way to put it. Just like a curator chooses what goes in their museum, we can choose what art we let in, what story it tells us.
Okay. But I like that. It means we're not just like passively taking it all in.
Right.
We're part of it.
You're not just absorbing art.
Yeah.
You're contributing to it, too.
What?
Every choice you make, it's like adding to this big human story.
So we're all artists, making our own little masterpieces every day.
In a way, yeah. And the more you realize that, the more you can choose what you want to create.
So, big responsibility.
It is. And it's not just about you. It's about everyone. The stories we tell, the art we make, it all affects the world around us.
Whoa. Okay, so if we're all artists, then we're also all like critics.
Exactly. We got to think about the art we see, critique it, challenge it.
Challenge it.
Yeah, and even challenge our own ideas. Ask yourself whose stories are being told here, whose voices am I listening to, and can I help other voices get heard?
Huh. So it's not enough to just watch or listen?
Nope.
Got to get in there, ask questions, maybe even use art to change things.
You got it. Art has always been about shaking things up, making people think, and now that the lines are getting blurrier between art and life, it's more important than ever.
This all goes back to that first question, right? Art imitating life, life imitating art.
Yeah.
We're never going to find the perfect answer, are we?
Probably not.
It's more about how they're connected, this constant conversation between them.
Exactly. They're always talking to each other, inspiring each other. It's this beautiful thing.
Okay, so we got to be more aware. Choose our art carefully. Maybe even use it to make a difference. But there's this thing that bugs me. If we're all just living out stories, like we said,
Yeah.
does that mean we don't really have free will? Like, are we just puppets controlled by art?
Now, that's a question that's been around forever.
Right.
No easy answer there. But I think it's important to remember, art doesn't tell you exactly what to do. It just gives you options, like a menu of choices.
Oh, a menu. So we get to choose what we order, so to speak.
Exactly. We still decide which stories to follow, which roles to play, and the more aware we are, the more power we have to choose.
So even though art affects us, we still get to decide what happens in our lives.
Absolutely. And that's what's so exciting. We can take all these influences, all these stories, and make something totally new, something that's really us.
That's awesome.
Yes.
It's like we're all DJs remixing the sounds of art and life into our own soundtrack.
Love that. And just like a DJ, we got to know how to blend all the pieces together so it sounds good, so it feels right.
So don't ignore art, but don't let it control you either.
Right. Find that balance. Let it inspire you, but make your own choices.
This makes me think about all those times I've felt like stuck, just going through the motions. Maybe that was because I was following someone else's script instead of writing my own.
It happens. We all get stuck in those pre-written stories sometimes.
Yeah.
But the good news is you always have the power to break free. Rewrite the script. Make something new.
So how do we do that? How do we get unstuck and start telling our own stories?
That's what we're going to explore in the last part of our deep dive.
Oh, cool.
We'll talk about the actual steps we can take to become, conscious creators of our own lives. And art's going to be our guide.
Okay, deep divers, we're back. Last leg of our journey into this whole art life thing. It's been pretty mind-blowing, right?
It has.
We started with cave paintings, ended up talking about like the Wild West and AI art. It's been a ride.
A lot to cover.
We saw how art can mess with how we see love, beauty, even our own identities.
And with all the tech stuff happening, that line between what's real and what's not, it's getting blurrier all the time.
Totally. But the biggest takeaway for me, at least, is that we can actually do something about it.
Right.
Become more aware of how art's influencing us, and then make choices about what we let in and what we create.
Being conscious creators.
Yes. But okay, let's get practical. What are the actual steps? How do we do that? How do we become these conscious creators?
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
But I think it starts with the right mindset and some good habits. And one of the most important, curiosity.
Curiosity. Really? Seems kind of simple. How did that help with all this big existential stuff?
Curiosity is like the fuel for creativity. It's what makes us explore, experiment, question things. When you come to art with curiosity, you're not just watching it, you're engaging with it.
So instead of just zoning out during a movie,
Right.
I'm thinking about why the director chose this shot, or how the music makes me feel, or if the story reminds me of anything in my own life.
Exactly. You're asking questions. You're seeing art not just as something pretty to look at, but something to unpack, something to learn from.
Like we're art detectives.
Yes. Uncovering hidden meanings, making connections. And in doing that, you develop your own taste, your own way of seeing things.
But you said curiosity helps us create our own realities too, right?
It does.
How so?
Well, curiosity leads to exploring. The more art you experience, the more perspectives you encounter, the more you open up your own creative potential.
Like it's gathering inspiration.
Yeah, you could say that. Sounds, images, ideas, feelings, it's all fuel for making something new.
So we're not just copying what we see, we're taking it in and changing it into something totally unique.
That's it. And the more you create, the better you get at it.
Makes sense.
You build that creative muscle, and then you start to feel more confident, like you can break free from those old stories and write your own.
Okay. Curiosity. Got it.
Yeah.
What else do we need in this recipe for conscious creation?
Another key ingredient, playfulness.
Playfulness. Seriously. I thought we were talking about shaping our destinies and stuff. Where does playing fit into all of this?
Don't underestimate playfulness. It's way more powerful than people think. When you approach life with a playful attitude, you're open to new things. You're willing to try, to fail, to learn.
So it's like letting go of needing to be perfect all the time, just having fun with it.
Exactly. Think about kids playing pretend.
Okay.
They're not worried about doing it right. They're just, creating, imagining.
Wow.
That's the kind of energy we need.
That kid energy, for sure. The excitement, the wonder, just the pure fun of it. I like it.
It's about finding that creativity that we all have inside, but sometimes gets buried under all the, self-doubt and fear.
Yeah.
When you let yourself play, you unlock all that potential.
This is making a lot of sense. Okay, curiosity, playfulness. What's the last piece?
Connection.
Connection.
Art is all about communication, right? Sharing stories, experiences, emotions.
So it's not just about me in my room making art.
Right. It's about connecting with others, sharing your work, getting feedback, seeing what other artists are doing.
Opening yourself up to different perspectives.
Exactly. When you connect with others through art, it changes how you see the world, how you see yourself, makes you think in new ways.
I'm starting to see how these three things, curiosity, playfulness, and connection, they all kind of work together
They do.
to make this like powerful force for change, not just in our own lives, but like in the world.
Right. When you approach life with those three things,
Mm-hmm.
the possibilities are endless. You become a co-creator. You're shaping reality.
Wow. It's like we're all weaving this big, beautiful tapestry together.
And the more we embrace that, the more amazing it becomes.
So after all this, I think we finally figured out the answer to that question. Does art imitate life, or does life imitate art?
What do you think it is?
It's both. They can't exist without each other. They're always influencing each other, inspiring each other. It's a dance.
It is a dance, and we get to choose how we want to dance. Do we just watch, or do we get out there and move?
Do we follow someone else's steps, or do we create our own?
The choice is yours. And like we've been saying, the possibilities. Endless.
That's all for our deep dive today, folks. Thanks for exploring with us. Keep those creative juices flowing, and until next time, keep diving deep.